So yeah, I think gold and silver will go higher than anyone thinks possible. 100%. And what we see in Shanghai is just the very beginning of it. I think before it's all said and done, you'll see them jack prices up more and more and more and more in the last ditch attempt to siphon away anything from this fraudulent Western system. China's the largest producer of silver in the world, and they've just became a second largest producer of silver, largest of gold, but they just became, over the last few months, a net importer. These countries are viewing commodities the way we've been talking about, the way that they would, and that the way that they are, and the West doesn't tell anyone, and so no one understands how significant this really is. But if it were so archaic, if it were so underperforming, then that he showed, where 8 banks hold the largest concentrated short position in silver of any commodity ever traded in COMEX history. Why? Silver is more important than the West is leading on to, and that is why you see China flying around the world buying unrefined silver and shipping it back. That's why you see India buying 700-800 thousand metric tons over the last 3-4 years. This is a situation where silver and gold are far more valuable than the currencies that purchase it. Much of the world understands this. We don't, and to try and play games and try and bottom feed and get lucky, it's not something that I think will go over very well, especially with such a small participation of the U.S. public. If gold and silver are doing what they have been doing, let's forget about silver because it's been held down. But look at gold, and silver will surpass gold in percentage terms, I believe, before it's all said and done. But if gold is doing what it's doing with positive real yield, forget about the nonsense out of the BLS and all that stuff, but a positive real yield, a strong dollar, and waning participation by the West, what happens when that changes? What happens now that we're pivoting and we're going to lower rates and we're going to weaken the dollar and we're going to reignite inflation? And, does the public wake up to this and start buying? It's rocket fuel. But much of what we see in the metals market is illusionary, unfortunately, because it's the antithesis of the system that has been allowed to rise unabated versus gold and silver, which have been stepped on. And although they continue to move, I would argue stepped on to the point where they have not been allowed to fully express themselves to their real potential. Even gold, which has outpaced the S&P 500, and doubled the performance of the 10-year treasury. Gold's 9.9% per year. It's up 20% this year. It's beating the tech industry. Where the hell is the mainstream media telling us?
Yeah, right.
Silver is far more strategic than they're letting on. It's used in all the high-tech weaponry. And we're selling weapons around the globe. Look at the money they just again gave to the Ukraine. It's 100% in weapons. And so they need silver in order to create these weapons. And that's the hidden secret. The congressional meetings that they had in the 40s and the 50s that talked about the massive amount of silver needed it for military. 200 million ounces a year they were talking about, when weapons were nowhere near as sophisticated as they are now. So you ask yourself, why does silver do what it is? Why isn't it performing? Why is gold doing this and silver isn't? Why is it being stepped on? Why? Well, why are 8 banks shorting this when China's flying around the globe buying unrefined silver and India is buying 10 times the amount that is available for sale in COMEX and 2.5 times the amount that's available on the LBMA? Why? Because they know what we're doing. It's the exact same thing as the guy said in 2015 who runs the Shanghai Exchange. When China is allowed to speak at the table, the real price of gold will be known. It's the same thing as the guy who is now running the BRICS grain exchange. We produce more grain than the West does, and we cannot control the price. It's all controlled on COMEX, but this new grain exchange will change that. They know what we're doing.
In recent years, the global financial landscape has been quietly shifting, largely driven by a calculated and strategic accumulation of precious metals by nations like China, India, and other BRICS countries. Andy Schectman, a respected voice in the world of precious metals, has been sounding the alarm on this paradigm shift. He argues that while the West has been slow to acknowledge the value of gold and silver, Eastern powers are positioning themselves to take advantage of a future where these commodities become far more valuable than the fiat currencies that currently dominate global trade. China, for instance, is the second largest producer of silver and the largest producer of gold. However, what's even more telling is the fact that China has recently shifted from being a net exporter to a net importer of silver. This is a significant move that reveals how China views the future of commodities in global markets. By accumulating both gold and silver, China is safeguarding its financial future. building reserves that are not dependent on the whims of fiat currencies or the US dollar. Meanwhile, India has also been a significant player in the silver market, purchasing vast quantities of the metal over the last few years. Between China and India, these nations are buying up more silver than is available in major Western exchanges, like the COMEX and the London Bullion Market Association, LBMA. As Schectman points out, while the Western media is largely silent on these developments, the strategic accumulation of silver and gold by these nations suggests that they understand the true value of these metals in ways that the West does not or refuses to acknowledge. This brings us to the crux of the issue, the suppression of precious metals in Western markets. Despite the strategic importance of silver in industries like high-tech weaponry and renewable energy, its price has been artificially held down by Western financial institutions. Schectman notes that 8 major banks hold the largest concentrated short position in silver, effectively preventing the metal from reaching its true market value. This manipulation is designed to prop up the current financial system, which relies heavily on the strength of fiat currencies like the US dollar. But why would Western powers suppress the price of precious metals? The answer lies in the fact that gold and silver represent a direct threat to fiat currencies. When precious metals are allowed to express their true value, they expose the inherent weakness of paper money. In other words, gold and silver are the antithesis of a system built on debt and money printing. By keeping the prices of these metals artificially low, the West can maintain the illusion that fiat currencies are stable and trustworthy. However, this manipulation cannot last forever. Schectman argues that we are nearing a tipping point where the true value of gold and silver will be revealed. And when that happens, those who have been quietly accumulating these metals, like China, India, and other BRICS nations, will be in a position of immense financial power. While gold often grabs the headlines, Schectman emphasizes that silver is the real hidden giant in this story. Silver is far more strategic than the mainstream media lets on. It is used in a wide array of industries, from electronics to solar energy to military weaponry. In fact, during congressional hearings in the 1940s and 1950s, it was revealed that the US military required 200 million ounces of silver annually to produce weapons, back when weaponry was far less sophisticated than it is today. Fast forward to the present, and the demand for silver in high-tech industries has only increased, yet its price remains artificially low.
I don't know that if it really is what the real price. So in Shanghai for a long time now, the price of silver has been much higher than in the West. It started out $2 higher, 250, $350, $4 higher on the Shanghai Metals Exchange. And I think that's well below what it should be, but it's enough to entice the idiotic traders who have the ability to buy in the West and to deliver in the East. That's a pretty hefty arbitrage for them when you're talking millions of ounces. So yeah, I think this is certainly something that you could see being raised higher and higher and higher and higher to arbitrage everything that isn't nailed down. And so, you know, with all the talk of revaluing gold and gold anyway, in the gold revaluation account these days, Senator Cynthia Loomis, the senator from Wyoming, talking about using it to fund the Bitcoin strategic account that Trump talked about when she spoke at the Bitcoin convention in Tennessee. The real price of gold and silver, no one knows what the hell it is. That's the truth, because of all of the distortions in asset prices over the last half a dozen years due to low interest rates and easy money. The one things that were stepped on and weren't allowed to over express themselves were gold and silver. And just based by the acquisition and by the backing of, when you look at the BIS and the IMF plans for cryptocurrencies or central bank digital currencies, it all seem to be pegged to gold to some degree, whether it be the unit or the report that came out of the IMF saying gold is a barbarous relic, or an international reserve currency, a barbarous relic no more, question mark, or the Kristalina Georgieva, the head of the IMF, saying, you know, CBDC is not pegged to something would be fiat. They're all talking about gold, and I think the price is way distorted. And these countries have been using the suppression of the West to accumulate. And when they all have it, that suppression will end. It will end badly. You can only manipulate a market by pushing the direction it's going, at least for an extended period of time. And these countries are now, like I've been saying, motivated, coordinated, sophisticated, and wealthy. And they are using every chance they get to drain the system, using these Western prices, which are artificial. They are not real. And even though they're higher in Shanghai to entice arbitrage, they're not real. They're not real, even remotely real. And they'll be much higher based upon the amount of currency creation and based upon the projects that are coming and what it means to, I think, install confidence in a system that's dying for some confidence, dying for some. So, yeah, I think gold and silver will go higher than anyone thinks possible. 100%. And what we see in Shanghai is just the very beginning of it. I think before it's all said and done, you'll see them jack prices up more and more and more and more in the last ditch attempt to siphon away anything from this fraudulent Western system.
China's strategy of flying around the globe to purchase unrefined silver and ship it back home is a clear indication that they understand the strategic importance of this metal. Similarly, India has been buying up silver at a rate that far exceeds what is available for sale in Western markets. And yet, the price of silver remains suppressed. This disconnect between supply, demand, and price is one of the most glaring examples of market manipulation in the world today. But as Schectman points out, this manipulation is unsustainable. The real price of silver, and gold for that matter, is not what we see in Western markets. The Shanghai Metals Exchange has consistently priced silver higher than the COMEX and LBMA, sometimes by as much as $4 per ounce. This price differential presents an arbitrage opportunity for traders who can buy silver in the West and sell it in the East, making a tidy profit in the process. But it also signals that the real value of silver is far higher than what the Western markets are willing to admit. As more nations realize the importance of silver in industrial and military applications, the demand for this metal will only increase. And when the true value of silver is finally allowed to surface, it will likely surpass gold in percentage terms, delivering massive gains to those who have been accumulating it. Schectman's argument isn't just about market manipulation, it's about the inevitable revaluation of gold and silver. He draws attention to the ongoing discussions within the BRICS nations and other Eastern powers about backing their currencies with gold. In a world where fiat currencies are losing value due to rampant money printing and inflation, gold offers a stable, tangible asset that can restore confidence in monetary systems. One of the most intriguing developments in this regard is the potential creation of a new BRICS settlement currency that would be backed by 40% gold and 60% local currencies. This new currency, known as the unit, would be traded over a digital payment system like Project Enbridge, allowing BRICS nations to settle trade without relying on the US dollar or the SWIFT system. If this currency is launched and backed by gold, it would mark the beginning of the end for the US dollar's global dominance. The strategic importance of gold in this new financial system cannot be overstated. In 2019, the Bank for International Settlements reclassified gold as a Tier 1 asset, putting it on par with US treasuries in terms of risk. This move signaled that gold was once again being recognized as a foundational asset for national reserves. In the years since, central banks around the world, particularly in BRICS nations, have been accumulating gold at record rates. And they're not just buying gold, they're repatriating it, bringing their reserves back home to protect them from potential confiscation or freezing by Western powers. This repatriation of gold is a clear sign that these nations are preparing for a new financial order, one where gold plays a central role in stabilizing their currencies. Schectman suggests that the BIS likely advised these countries to bring their gold home and continue accumulating it in preparation for this new system. If this is true, it means that the world's most powerful financial institutions are quietly preparing for a future where gold, and perhaps silver, replace the US dollar as the global reserve asset. For individual investors, Schectman's message is clear. Now is the time to accumulate gold and silver. The central banks are not buying these metals because they expect the prices to remain stagnant. They are buying them because they understand that the current financial system is unsustainable. When the US dollar finally loses its global dominance, gold and silver will soar in value, delivering massive gains to those who were wise enough to accumulate them beforehand. But this isn't just about making a profit. It's about protecting your wealth. Fiat currencies are losing value at an alarming rate, and inflation is eroding the purchasing power of cash. Even with interest rates on the rise, the returns on fiat currency are still not enough to offset inflation. In contrast, gold and silver have a proven track record of preserving wealth in times of economic uncertainty. Schectman warns that the current suppression of precious metals is creating a false sense of security. Investors who are relying on fiat currencies to maintain their purchasing power are in for a rude awakening when inflation spirals out of control. By accumulating gold and silver now, investors can safeguard their wealth and be in a position to take advantage of the massive revaluation that is coming. In conclusion, Andy Schectman's insights paint a picture of a world on the brink of a major financial transformation. As Eastern powers like China and India accumulate gold and silver, the West remains largely oblivious to the coming changes. But make no mistake, when the true value of these metals is revealed, the financial landscape will be forever changed. For viewers and investors, the time to act is now. The central banks are preparing for this shift, and so should you. Accumulate gold and silver, protect your wealth, and be ready for the day when the true value of these precious metals is finally recognized on the global stage. As Schectman says, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to see what's coming. The writing is on the wall, and those who are prepared will not only survive but thrive in the new financial order.
Stay informed about the latest developments shaping the precious metals markets with regular updates from the Finance Daily team. Not only that, but as a subscriber, you'll also receive timely silver and gold price notifications and early access to groundbreaking news unavailable to the general public. Join our free gold and silver newsletter today, link in the description.